Hi, welcome back. Thank you for everyone who joined us for our town hall with the district and all their questions. We didn't get a chance to keep everybody on to respect everybody's time, so we decided that we would go ahead and record the PTA part of the town hall separate for you guys to listen to a little bit later. So thank you so much for joining us back again. We have Marnie Kaner from Texas PTA, as well as here in Richardson ISD Council of PTA's parliamentarian, Carolyn Potter, RISD Council of PTA's president, and Jessica Lucas, RISD Council of PTA's inclusiveness chair. And so we've got some great PTA questions that we are going to ask. And the first one goes to Carolyn. Carolyn, what can we do to implement diversity on the PTA board?
Thank you, Meredith, and thank you, Marty and Jessica, for your time. When it comes to implementing diversity, the thing you should keep in mind is that your board should be reflective of your community. And a great way to start that is an inclusivity chair. A lot of our local units have that position. And if you're a local unit that does not and wants to find out more, Jessica can certainly help. Reach out to myself, to Marnie, to Meredith, and let's start that conversation. When it comes to PTA and recruiting your members, definitely, again, it should be reflective of your community on your local campus, and not just this very specific lens. Think multi-generational. Let's think about all the nationalities and religious components of your community, and just making sure you're thoughtful when you're out speaking PTA and trying to recruit parents, whether it be off the playground or in the carpool line or at PTA programs, that is the direction you're going. With that, you get a better understanding of your children, your families that you're serving. And so thinking of inclusivity from the standpoint of the programs that you're offering. And is everyone represented? And do your programs represent your community? And just think of it from a holistic view. And it helps to identify maybe programs you want to bring to your campus that support your campus community. And that's it in a nutshell. Just make sure that you have a chair if you need one, or don't have one, you get one. And then just making sure, you're inclusive and representing your community on your campus.
Awesome, thank you. All right, Jessica, in what ways can our PTA be more inclusive?
So thank you so much for all of these wonderful questions. I like to always look at things as acknowledgement and action. So I want to reiterate what Carolyn stated, that the current plan of work that I will be presenting to the board is to make sure that all local units establish that change in their bylaws to include an inclusiveness chair along with the committee. Just to kind of set you up on what kind of actions we're going to put in place this school year and moving forward. We want to help shift the mindset that being inclusive, it goes beyond the multicultural night, or that one night that you are displaying the diversity in your school. It's a conscious acknowledgement of the differences that our community has, and in parallel, working consistently towards providing the tools needed to unify our community for our students. So acknowledgement and action. These tools can be for providing that more inclusive PTA, can be materials or events in multiple languages, conducting PTA events focused on specific needs and opportunities related to the circumstance of the families with children in foster care, immigrants, refugees, homeless families. These events can be geared towards literacy, continuing education, learning English, and so on. Another means of implementing inclusiveness is conducting PTA events designed to engage multicultural communities. So that includes our African American families, our Hispanic Latino families, Asian American families, our Pacific Islander, our families that are involved in foster care, and our families that have LGBTQ+ members. Let's also not forget increasing that male presence and perspectives in PTAs at all levels and in all activities. Some of the examples of what this can look like, for instance, and you can go on texaspta.com, is something called PTA More, which is Men Organized to Raise Engagement Alliance. I know there is a lot of units that have another group called Watchdogs in order to increase that male presence in their local unit and in their board. We also need to address issues specific to families with children who have special needs, military families, and families with gifted children. So this is a wonderful opportunity for you to work alongside with your stage chair and collaborate and build events that address the needs of those families. And I want to end the response with not forgetting to address our verbiage. When sending out communication, we need to work in being inclusive. For instance, when we have events like Muffins with Moms or Donuts with Dads, this inadvertently can give the impression that these events are exclusive to nuclear families. So that's another action that we can do in making sure that when we send out these communications, that these communications are not giving that impression and that we are being inclusive and including all different types of families and family dynamics.
Thank you,
awesome.
Jessica.
Like breakfast with Buddy instead.
Yes, pastries with parents.
Yeah.
Yes.
Donuts with Dude.
Donuts with Dude. Awesome. All right, Carolyn, the next question is for you. How do we engage underrepresented groups on our PTAs?
Reaching out to traditionally underrepresented groups is an essential step of maintaining a strong PTA on that grassroots advocacy front. And it's a concerted effort to look at your campus and making sure, back to Jessica's point, that you're taking into account everyone's viewpoint and asking the questions, asking them to join, inviting your parents and family members, community members within your community to join. That ask is really important. Effective messaging back to the multiple languages that represent your campus and making sure that your communication matches that. We do have translation services available from the district, and a lot of times that inclusivity chair knows that contact or knows how to get to the translation headsets, for example, for a program that you're running, and broadcasting that out in that program in multiple languages. Your membership forms and being thoughtful on what that looks like from the standpoint of, if it's a high-tech campus, that's great, but not all of our members are techies. So do we have paper forms? Are they in the languages that represent your campus? And just being thoughtful on that front. I think we can sometimes get caught in the like, oh, do a QR code and pass it in this techie front. Well, not everyone is comfortable with the QR code. Not everyone even knows what a QR code is, right? So looking at it from multiple language lenses. And what's nice if you have a well-represented campus on your board is those viewpoints will come to light, and your members will raise that question, or your executive board will raise a question like, hey, have we thought about, everyone's ability to access this form digitally? And creating those community connections. Again, it's a very thoughtful, cognizant approach to make sure that you're being inclusive of everyone on your campus, not just your immediate peer group, but expanding beyond that. And you'll be stronger as a local group or a local PTA because of that. And being a resource of information, educational pieces, and a conduit between your parents and the administration on your staff, and just making sure that you're being inclusive and thoughtful and reaching out.
Thank you. All right, Jessica, this question will be for you. What is the role of the inclusiveness chair on the PTA? Council and local, maybe.
Yes. So I get this question a lot since taking the role of the inclusiveness chair last year. I got this question a lot, and I really had to look deep in myself because I do think, and again, acknowledgement and action is two of the things that I try to really hone in on, in that we do need to be clear on what an inclusiveness chair is, not just on the board, council, but on our local unit. So the inclusiveness chair provides leadership, provides support and encouragement for local units when we're thinking about what it is in the board level, and district diversity and inclusion initiatives. So what this looks like in the local level is the same thing. And in the local unit, it's the same thing. You're going to continue providing that leadership, that support, that encouragement. You are that check and balance system to make sure that we are including all of our different diverse families. So it's also having a point of contact to provide guidance and assistance. And it allows for cohesion and consistency of diversity initiatives. So your chair can also help with the needs and challenges of local units in guaranteeing units that are comprised of students, parents, and teachers are being heard in terms of inclusiveness. So what I like to always use the term is intersectional collaboration, so that we are able to make sure that we are heard from all different populations that our schools are comprised of, and that if there is any issues or challenges that that unit is facing, that they feel open to be able to express those needs and those challenges to the inclusiveness chair on the council PTA board, so that we can all work collaboratively together to move forward in a positive, productive way.
I like it. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Carolyn, this one's for you. What is the difference between the SAGE chair and the inclusiveness chair?
Well, and I feel like Jessica was leading me right into that as well. SAGE specifically stands for Special and Gifted Education. That's when we talk acronym and speak SAGE, that's what we're speaking about. And that's the zone it lives in, is special and gifted education only. That chair can work in conjunction with the inclusivity chair, and you'll see some overlap. But the SAGE chairs typically work really closely with the district as well, and representing that group or that population, and disseminating information from the district down to the local unit membership about the special and gifted education pieces. And it's a very robust chair at the council level. We have a great committee of PTA leaders working in the SAGE committee area, and if that's something of interest, again, you just have to reach out to myself or Marnie or Meredith or Jessica or Carol Demler, who is the leader of SAGE this year for council. But that is just a slight difference there, is inclusivity versus special and gifted education, and a different set of points that they're going after as far as representing that population.
Thank you. All right, Jessica, the next two are kind of go together. If you'll just talk a little bit about why it is important to make accommodations for our members that it may not have English as their first language, and maybe some resources to help our PTAs either translate or provide different flyers about PTA in Spanish or another language.
So before I go into answering that, I do want to also add on to the difference between SAGE and inclusive chair. And when Caroline talks about how SAGE is very robust, so it is for inclusive, because I do also get a lot of questions in regards to, well, why can't they just be one in their own, right? It is a lot of work. Both of those chairs is a lot of work, and there's a lot of different aspects to both those chairs. So that's the reason why I think it's so important that on a local unit, they have each one, SAGE and inclusiveness, because then like that, you are guaranteeing that, our students who are special education and our gifted education students are being heard, and as well as everyone else. So I just wanted to add that little piece, and then I'll go into the question on why it's important to make accommodations for members if English is not their first language. So this is a personal love of mine. It is so imperative. A lot of times, and I speak about this in a personal level, in the sense that I am a local unit president, and I understand the struggles that a PTA local unit face, and one of them is communication. And so poor communication is often a key factor, and when a PTA struggles with growth and engagement. If an organization is trying to grow and engage membership but cannot effectively reach the designated audience, that organization will have some challenges attracting new members. So yes, it will hurt your membership, but more importantly, that I think I really want to make sure we come across here, is that it'll hinder the building of the relationship with your community. Because if you don't make that effort to make sure that everybody understands the materials you're sending home, then you inadvertently are saying that that population does not matter for them to know what's going on in the school. So what we all want is to be heard and to be included. So offering PTA and school materials in the family's native language is one way to include more families and keep them informed. Another thing, providing an interpreter at meetings and events can foster positive outreach to attract new members. One very effective way is to address the needs of the community that speak languages other than English, is to get those parents, those community members who speak those languages involved in organizing and in leadership roles within the PTA. Remember that PTA is the largest advocacy group for children, especially in education. So one thing I really want to say is we're not providing an accommodation, we're advocating for those families. We're advocating for those families whose English is not their first language. So you're probably asking right now, where can we find resources, specifically resources in Spanish? So Texas PTA is working on translating many other trainings and resources. The new Back the Future campaign logos are available in English and Spanish. National PTA also has a tab that you can go into and get more resources in Spanish. But most importantly, and what I think I really want to bring home here, is that by you including those families who have who speak languages other than English, they go back to them, bring them in, empower them so they can empower others by helping you translate the materials you want to stay home, or helping you translate for the event that you're pulling that night.
And Jessica, do you want to talk about the headsets that PTA has access to?
Yes. Thank you for reminding me. So yes, that is also something that you can utilize, which are headsets that help those families or those community members who don't speak English. I need some clarification if our headsets are one where you, translator, will be speaking. And so then those people who have those headsets will be able to hear just that translator versus the other. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure, because I do know that things are advancing and they do have other technology out there that I was looking into. But so the way that works is that those people, it's only a certain amount of headsets that we have, and those people who have them will be connected to a translator in their native language, and they won't hear the other, the event speaker. They will hear the translator. So it's an awesome way to make sure that that community has access to the event that's going on that day.
Yes, I've used those at our local unit before, as well as council PTA meetings. And if you have multiple languages, there's multiple headsets that can broadcast on their own channel. So a lot of possibility there.
And, all right, and we have a student that showed up for this last question, which is awesome, Carolyn. You can answer this. Speaking of students, how can we increase and support our student voice on our campuses?
Have student PTA members and have them on your board. We have one on our council board who's with us in this meeting, Lucy Levine, and provide programming for those students, student PTA members that are engaging, and absolutely have voter registration on your campus for those students turning 18. Lucy, do you have other recommendations? You want to jump in?
No, I think those are great. I think having students is a good way to reach out to the issues that students care about.
What was the best component that you had on your campus? You recently have had a student assembly, right?
Oh yes, we've had some panels with Dr. Stone and some, was it vice principals or principals across the district, and we had 10 students have a panel with them to talk about diversity and inclusion that they felt and saw at their school.
So real life engaging pieces with administration, which is important for student voice. And
I would also suggest, because I know some campuses have student councils and peer mediators, I would suggest definitely attracting those students, because they already are in these leadership roles. So this would just, this would definitely entice them and entice their friends to come in and be part of your local unit and contribute not just what they're learning as far as in student council or peer mediators, but contribute other things that they would like to see change in the local.
Yeah, I mean, I will say at RHS, we did have we allowed all of our student PTA members to submit questions and come to an event with our administrators and district administrators and school administrators. And it was very eye-opening, some of the questions that the kids had, from like no AC on days of SATs, or, talking about the passing time between classes, or, talking about, just different things, concern on the campus. And I think so that's a great thing to do.
I do want to bring up a couple of things to finish this up in this time of COVID about how we can work on engaging all of our families when we know that they're not necessarily going to be able to come to campus. So Jessica, do you have some suggestions for ways when our families don't necessarily have the technology in their home, how can we still be inclusive with those families as well?
That is a really good question. And believe me, I have been just knee deep in research on how to help our local units in making sure that we are including everybody, because you bring up a very valid point. And we talk a lot about race and religion, but we also need to talk about socioeconomic disadvantaged families who do not have access to internet or might not have access to the technology that's needed. Because that is one way that you can make sure, we all are becoming experts of Zoom. And so, and having a Zoom event to bring in families, but then you have to also think that those who are not socioeconomically able to have the internet and have the technology. So this is where we face a challenge. How do we approach that with COVID and not being able to do anything in person? I still think pick up the phone. I mean, that's for me as simplistic as you can get. Pick up the phone, call those families, ask them how are they doing, ask them what do they need, because a lot of times, and just speaking on a personal level, being that I also work for RASD, you have a lot of families right now who need their basic necessities. So that's a way that to continuously keep them included. In opening your heart and in establishing that rapport and that relationship with them, and knowing that, yes, COVID is here. Yes, COVID is not letting us be with each other in person, but I am going to pick up that phone and I am going to make sure that you are okay, and that if your family needs anything, that PTA is here, that your community is here for you. So that is as simplistic as I can get it for you all.
I love that. And I love the idea of reminding people that we can still make those phone calls. And I think this year we're really going to have to remember, in membership recruitment, in programs, in services to our families, that we're just going to have to go back to that good old-fashioned phone tree that I don't think any of us have seen in years.
I don't think I've ever seen it, Marty.
That make me old, is that what it is? Well, thank you all guys so much. I think, Meredith, did we hit all the questions?
Yes. So before we head off, Marty, I do want to make sure that everyone is aware about Texas PTA launch that is happening in October. Fingers crossed, right?
Hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah.
That it is happening in October. It was moved to October. And reason I'm bringing it up is because thankfully I will be there presenting more specifically and more in detail about inclusivity and how we can do in details to make sure that we are including, and how that brings us together as a community. So I hope to see RASD family there.
and stay tuned for more information about our Back the Future training. It will not be an in-person Back the Future day, but we will make sure we have plans, and Jessica will have time to have some time with anyone who's interested in inclusion, but especially our inclusiveness chairs on our campuses. So thank you, everybody, and have a good night.
Thank you.